Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Techstrong Gang. We've got AI PCs today, a feud between AI robber barons, and a debate over, well, what's going on with FinOps. You're watching Techstrong Gang, and we'll be back in a minute. Hey folks, I'm your host for the day, Mike Vizard, and we got an awesome lineup of folks today, starting with our friends in California. Once again, John Schwartz is out there in the Bay Area. John, how are you?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here on a big gang.
Excellent. Also out in the Bay Area, Lisa Martin, our resident CMO Advisor expert at the Futurum Group. Lisa, good to see you again.
Good to see you too. I'm excited for today's gang.
All right. Going, I guess, clockwise. I hope maybe everybody sees it the way I see it. But Amanda Rosani is down in Texas. How cold is it in Texas these days?
It's in the 40s. All last week it was high 80s, and now it's in the 40s.
All right.
Wow.
Also hanging out in Texas, Guy Currier.
Yeah, in Central Texas, where it might hit 60 today, but more to the point, it's like not just cold, it's like a little windy and like wet and ugly. Maybe that's why I'm so cranky. Or maybe it's because of my horrible Super Bowl prediction.
Well, that could be too. And finally, Stephen Foskett's in Ohio, where it's as cold as it is where I am in New York. Stephen, how you doing?
It's as cold as ice. I'm willing to pay the price, though.
Oh, man.
Nice foreigner reference. I saw that tour, by the way.
Hey, don't call me a foreigner. I want to stay here in America.
All right.
Noted.
We'll do something about that.
Somebody check his birth certificate. All right, we're moving on.
No need. We can just declare him a foreigner.
All right. Well, let's get into our first topic of the day, which is AI PCs. Our friends over at the Futurum Group have a new report out suggesting that enterprises might start buying these things earlier than anticipated to future-proof, as it were, because, well, yeah, they tend to hold on to these things for a few years. But, John, you wrote this report. What's your take on what's going on here? Is it realistic or is it wishful thinking?
It's probably both. I mean, there's elements of it that are real, but I think it is in terms of wishful thinking. So the Futurum Group talked to 852 enterprise IT decision makers this year, and they came away with three major findings. That number one, about more than half feel this need for their workforce to be more competitive as quickly as possible. So I guess the idea is you put the technology in front of people on an everyday basis and kind of force them to learn it or at least adapt to it. The second reason, which is tied to the first, is that nearly half identified the impending end to Windows 10 support as a critical priority. And then a third pointed out the necessity for improvement in system performance. Now, the thing that is interesting to me, and it was not in the story because it just came out, there's a Wedbush Securities report that shows that the budget for AI is probably roughly going to be in the 10 to 15% range this year, up from single digits, which shows this kind of acceleration of an AI strategy over the next 6 to 9 months. So there is like this discernible movement going on. And I think the AI PCs may play a piece of it. I'm not sure how significant. I think there are still some sort of roadblocks. For instance, in the Futurum survey, 36% were concerned about the higher unit price of AI PCs and related costs such as subscriptions to feature-enabling services. About a fourth cited concern over the ability of AI PC to run critical enterprise software natively. So there are still obstacles, but I think it is definitely moving in this direction. But seeing is believing. The idea is it's go time. We'll see. I know I have a measure of skepticism about it, but there you have it.
Guy, you want to jump in here?
Well, yeah, I've been saying all along, here and elsewhere that the AI movement feels a lot like the PC movement to me from back in the 80s, which was, in the case of the PC, about 20 years of investment, purchases, use, all that sort of stuff. While the economists were scratching their head and saying, well, we don't see any productivity gains. The benefits were so obvious that nobody was sitting around and measuring productivity.
Nonetheless, that sort of business bottom line, there was an adjustment to be made. People had to be trained. And then eventually we started to see it. I think that we're going to see that return on investment for AI generally a lot quicker than in 20 years, but it's the same basic thing. The benefits and usefulness are so obvious that investment is just going up without people sitting around trying to calculate the productivity or other gains. But I do want to say this. So when it comes to AI PCs specifically, I think that that's the movement. It's just there seems to be an obvious benefit, so IT shops are investing in it. But I also kind of wonder if we know like what an AI PC is. I mean, in this group, we can probably come up with a reasonable definition. But I'm wondering, Lisa and Amanda, I think of you guys as having sort of your pulse on popular sentiment. Do people know that an AI PC is a PC that is tailored for local inference? Or do they think something else, like it's something that helps create AI? I think that a lot of people are thinking the latter.
Yeah, I think a lot of people really are not clear on what an AI PC is. You nailed it.
I agree with that from a messaging perspective. I think it's not clear what that is. From an inferencing perspective, I think the average person doesn't understand that. And so they think, is it a PC with AI built into the hardware and software? Can I create AI with it? I think there needs to be some more definition and clarity around what it is and what those clear benefits are to any type of organization, retail, any other industry.
All right. Well, as it happens, Stephen Foskett had a video last year defining what an AI PC was, and it was one of the most watched videos he did all year long. So, Stephen, what the heck is an AI PC?
Thank you, Mike. I think Guy was maybe there when I recorded this live at a Tech Field Day event. And it's funny because obviously this video hit a nerve because that's the title. What is an AI PC? And so people are searching this and they're trying to figure it out. Essentially, what Lisa said is right on. It's not just hardware, it's hardware and software. And that is the important aspect to me of, what is an AI PC. You'll notice as well that in the Futurum study, they talk about not just Qualcomm Snapdragon X versus x86, they talk about Apple. And remember that Apple is right there. I mean, we sometimes use those two letters PC to exclude Apple, but in this case, Apple is right there making AI PCs as well. And what I said in the video, and this is like, I think what people need to know, and what, as you just mentioned, Lisa, that people don't seem to know, is, it's all about running AI locally on your local data, on your local machine. But it's not just about horsepower. Now, certainly Snapdragon X and the Apple M series have incredible horsepower for doing AI performance tasks. And Intel and AMD are not asleep at the wheel. They have also introduced incredible chips that can, it's hilarious because, they're right there with chips that can do the same thing. But it's not about hardware as much as it is. Well, hardware is a necessity. It's about software and it's about integration and it's about having those models at your fingertips. Companies like Microsoft and Salesforce and Slack and Dropbox and all these other companies are trying to bring that software natively into the interface. Microsoft now has, Copilot in the ribbon on Office apps. That's when AI becomes real. It can't happen until you have a PC that can handle the computing, but it also can't happen until, Joe in accounting or Jane in software development has that Copilot icon on her desktop and
knows how to use it.
The desire to use it.
Right.
And
those are the two things, right? First, we keep hearing so much about it.
You know what, guys? Let's just buy right now and we'll figure that out later. Maybe in the third or fourth generation of AI PC that we buy. That really, isn't that what's happening?
So I have a question. So you say it's more about the software. It is about the hardware too, supporting, but I imagine a lot of people would say, well, then can't I just make my current computer be an AI PC because all the shared AI software? We see the Copilot. I already have Copilot. I already have ChatGPT. I already have Canva AI. Can't I just use a bunch of shared AI software and I have an AI PC?
It's a really good point, and I think that in some ways the AI industry may have done themselves a disservice by rushing this stuff out with cloud-based applications, because essentially, as you're saying, yeah, absolutely, that Copilot icon appears whether you have an AI PC or not. And in many cases, you look at ChatGPT's incredible success, it's running in the cloud. You don't need an AI PC to run ChatGPT. You can run it on your old iPhone SE, even though it's not actually running on your old iPhone. It's running in the cloud. But to you, does it matter? And Apple has done an incredible job as well of seamlessly integrating cloud and local processing to the point that even if you have the latest and greatest M4, iPad or Mac or the latest iPhone, you don't know and you can't know whether it's running locally or in the cloud. And that kind of undercuts this entire discussion, because if all this stuff can run, whether you have an AI PC or not, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Think about this slightly differently. So many, many years ago, during the start of the dot-com boom, I went toe-to-toe with a CFO who subsequently became one of my best friends. But at the time, he was arguing we didn't need new PCs to support a publishing staff that was at the time moving into the brave new world of online publishing, and everybody's laptops were crashing and stories were getting lost and people were losing their minds. And for whatever reason, he was still on this, well, we're going to upgrade every 3-year kind of cycle. Fast forward to today, I would have just told him to bugger off and went out and bought a bunch of PCs myself and just handed them out to folks and said, this is our new units and this is what we're doing. So, Guy, who cares what the CIO or the CFO thinks anymore? People are just going to do shadow IT and do what they need to do when they need to do it.
Well, I think that's a great follow-up to Stephen's comment, because with a certain level of, one of the things that I'm really hot on right now is edge AI. Stephen helped get me there, by the way, I have to say, in work with the Tech Field Day and with him. Why? So that answers your question, Amanda, but it's a technical question. Where should processing occur? Should it occur at the core or should it occur at the edge? This is an architectural question. This is an application architecture and design question. Like Stephen says, Apple's done a phenomenal job with this sort of thing. So, Mike, I don't see any reason, if you got the money, not to invest in what amounts to an edge AI capability. That's the AI PC, recognizing that maybe it'll never be used. So I agree with you. Just go take out. Who cares what the CIO and the CFO says? Well, you care. You're a head of a business unit. You care about your bottom line. You want to show ROI. You invest in all kinds of things all over the place, the technological and non-technological, like fancy group dinners or something like that, that you're not going to sit there and justify, hey, this particular thing had this ROI, especially if it has AI attached to it. In fact, let's just attach AI to everything that we want to buy, whether it really is AI or not, and then everybody will let us buy it.
All right. John, what do you think the odds are that an AI PC is going to cost a lot more in 3 months due to a tariff than it does today?
That's a good point. Yeah, everything's going to cost a lot more. I was going to go back to something we were talking about Apple in terms of organic growth and shadow adoption of a PC, or in the case of the Mac. I mean, it will find a way, and I suspect that might happen with AI in a certain sense. It's always driven by software. Hardware is important, but that underlying use from the user is just important. Yeah, that's interesting, Mike. With given the tariffs that are going to be in effect, does that kind of negate or kind of put a kibosh on the enthusiasm of some folks when they look at their budgets? I mean, it's something we should probably take a look at, and I think it's probably going to happen in some form.
Stephen, you want to jump in here a little bit in terms of predictions for AI PC costs going up, down? What's your thought?
Well, with the CHIPS Act, I think there's a good chance that we might actually be manufacturing some of this stuff locally. I mean, the news coming out of Apple is that they just produced their first U.S.-made processor in TSMC. I think it is TSMC factory. I think that we are going to see some homegrown chips, but of course, it's complicated, as they say, because it's not just etching the chips, it's packaging, it's manufacturing, final assembly, distribution, all those things that matter. And tariffs could get in the way of a lot of that because it is a globally interconnected supply chain. So I'll say that I believe that we will probably be seeing costs for literally everything go up in the face of tariffs, because that's what tariffs are. That's what they do. And that's what's going to happen.
All right. I'm betting the PCs will be assembled in the Bahamas to get around the tariffs. That's
Hey, that happened a lot in the 60s and 70s when we had a big international tariff regime. There was a lot of outsourcing to the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico and places like that.
Interesting.
Lisa, I want to give you the last word on this. Guy and Stephen talked about this a little bit, but is there a branding, marketing issue around AI PCs and the way we use the term? And do we need to kind of revisit this whole conversation?
I think so. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think from a clarity and a definition perspective, it needs to be there really clearly defined. The Futurum study that John started this block up with shows that a lot of organizations are really looking at AI PCs to be more competitive. Well, what does that mean? Competitive differentiation is incredibly important to every type of business, but how will an AI PC, if I'm a retailer, help me get there? I think from a clarity perspective, the messaging needs to be refined. The benefits need to be really clear so organizations understand, do I invest now, to your point on the tariffs, or do I wait? If I wait, my costs go up. But I think that the marketing folks, they talk about future proofing, and that's always one of those marketing terms that bothers me because it means something different to everybody, or it doesn't really mean anything. What is future proofing with AI PCs? Future proofing what? My business? How? So I think there's a lot of wiggle room in an AI PC definition currently. Stephen kind of nailed it with what should be done so organizations can really make the right investment decision as to whether they really need it right now or not.
All right. I'm going to tell you where you can find future proofing. It's right here on Techstrong TV, where you get the knowledge you need to make the right decisions in the future. There you go. All right, folks. We'll be back in a minute.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey, folks, we're back, and we're going to be talking about this bid that Elon Musk and a bunch of investors are making for OpenAI. And geez, you just can't make this stuff up. It's right out of robber barons in the Gilded Age. Lisa, I mean, I don't think, at least from where I sit, I'm not sure that this is even a serious thing, because last time I checked, the company was worth more than the bid. And I don't think that they actually have to respond because they're not really structured like a typical company. But from your perspective, is this kind of out of hand, or is this, just silliness? Where are we going with this thing?
I think it's out of hand and silliness. It's Elon. When I heard it very early this morning, the news, I just thought, there he goes again. And we were talking before we went live about the chaos that ensues when Elon opens his mouth and offers a bid. The irony in it is that he was one of the co-founders back in 2015 with Sam Altman. Elon is a top advisor to President Trump, which was something I never expected to see. And I followed Elon for a long time. And then, of course, OpenAI with SoftBank and Oracle and Project Stargate, what they're doing there to invest in AI infrastructure in the States. Clearly, Sam Altman didn't take it seriously with his response, but I do vote for Sam Altman to buy X, as he joked about. I think that could bring back the Twitter name, but I think it's just it is silly. I think it's Elon flexing once again, and I think I always think, man, what must his marketing people think? That must drive them crazy that they can't control the message, because he's just going to say whatever he wants. Now, is XAI better than OpenAI? I don't use XAI personally. I use Grok with a Q, but I think that it's Elon going rogue, and I think it's just to probably tie up things for OpenAI's next steps, which it wants to do, and we'll have to wait and see how much that affects what those next step plans are. I think it's a bit of FUD. personally.
So I had so many thoughts rolling in my own head, and I'll tell you what those were. And then I put it out on social media to ask what other people think. But my first thought was, I'm not sure I like one person having control of any number of like all of the basically databases. Like he already is in control of X, and then we have Sam in control of ChatGPT. I would say I don't want one person controlling all these systems, because that's essentially such a huge amount of data that he has. And what's he going to do with it? And also, it's another platform to essentially manipulate society in a way. I mean, you could giving one person control of all these different platforms. That's a little scary. So secondly, I put this out on social media, though, just to see what people think. I put, hey, he offered this much. What do you think? Why did he put a bid? And so some of the responses were, because it is the hottest tech, he believes he can run it better. He enjoys limelight and positioning of power and money. And then somebody else put, to expand on that, they put essentially, it was a very long paragraph, but essentially, because it could be worth trillions in the long run, and that resources in the end are more important than money in the first place. And when you think of people of real power, while we're trying to just pay bills and enjoy life, they think in Machiavellian terms, dynasties. Somebody else put, all you have to do is go watch the Netflix docufilm on Cambridge Analytics, and you'll understand what's going on. So I don't know if anybody's seen that. And then let's see, because Elon may not be entirely human. Joking, not joking, because AI avatar hybrids are a legitimate potential future. And there are organizations deeper and darker than 99% of humans ever see and would ever believe. And there are things working in Pandora's box that are broader and deeper than we know. Okay, there are some of the answers that you have from my post.
John, what are they saying in the Valley about all this? Because
Right.
from where I sit, this is like, do I like Andrew Carnegie better than John Rockefeller? I don't know. They're all the same.
Yeah, they're all despised out here as well as the rest of the country. The one thing that when it always comes to Elon, there's always like an end game. There's the short game, and then there's the end game, and then there's a game that he hasn't even imagined yet in his addled brain. And there was a legal action by Musk against OpenAI to force OpenAI to auction off a portion of his business. And I'm wondering, by making this bid, as absurd as it may sound on the surface, whether he's trying to force or maybe elicit other types of bids, or force OpenAI to consider other offers, or at least entertain the idea of an auction, because they are moving towards a for-profit status. You're right. You mentioned earlier the amount they're offering is literally half of what OpenAI is valued at. So OpenAI is valued at about 160 billion, but there is a rumor that there will be another cash infusion, another round of funding that will elevate it to 260 billion. So in a sense, I think he's trying to muck with a company that he personally despises, and a guy that who's his mortal enemy, in a sense, of Sam Altman. I think this is all a lot of Machiavellian twists and turns, but I also think there is some sort of end game to try to compromise OpenAI as a company.
Yeah, if I can dive in on that one, I think that you're right there, John. It's still early hours of us digesting this, and so, but to me, the thing that caught my eye, let's be clear: Elon Musk is not bidding almost 100, and his team, his alleged. I was going to say co-conspirators, not exactly the right way to say it. His alleged consortium is not bidding for OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT. Let's be clear. This is a bid for a nonprofit organization
that controls OpenAI, right?
Correct. Yes.
And remember, the valuation that you just talked about is the valuation of OpenAI, the for-profit company, and OpenAI's assets. What Elon Musk is doing here, I think, has nothing to do with taking over OpenAI. I know that, you say Elon Musk and everybody just loses their stuff. What's happening?
Which I'm about to do, but please continue.
Feel free. I'm just going to say it 12 more times until your head explodes. What's happening here is this is absolutely the actions of back to Mike, what Mike said at the beginning. This is robber barons fighting robber barons. And what he's doing here is by offering this absurdly high, that's the thing. This is not a lowball offer. This is a high offer for the organization, for the .org kind of aspect. By offering an insanely, absurdly high amount for the nonprofit, he has just set the bar that says that when the for-profit entity wants to split from the nonprofit or wants to go public or wants to kind of cash in on this absurd valuation, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to beat that amount they're going to have to pay that amount to the nonprofit, because at that point, all the shareholders, everybody involved will say, wait a second, you want to split from the nonprofit and you want to give them some money. Previously, that some money might have been $1 billion or something. Now that some money has to be over $100 billion, which means that OpenAI, the company, is going to it's just Elon Musk just forced them to flush $100 billion down the toilet on nothing, or he's going to swoop in and have some kind of really valuable minority or maybe even majority shareholder stake in that eventual public entity. And so this is pretty much, I don't want to say a checkmate. This is certainly a check on the chessboard, and it has nothing to do with Elon Musk actually wanting to take over OpenAI. He's just forcing them to overpay.
Guy, you've been dying to jump in here, man.
Not exactly dying. I'm just shaking my head. So let me start with one
Elon
thing.
Elon Musk.
It's not Elon Musk derangement syndrome.
Is that like
promise.
Beetlejuice? Where were you going with that?
Uh-oh. Yeah, I guess so. Look, there is no offer. Okay? OpenAI, profit, nonprofit, whoever, Sam Altman, nobody has seen an offer. And so this is another case, yet another, 99 times out of 100, of Elon Musk saying some shit and everybody taking it seriously. If there's anyone in the universe whom you should pay attention to what they do rather than what they say, it's that guy.
I thought it was a different guy.
Over and over and over and over again, he just said some shit and wound up buying Twitter at one time. He just posted a price when he was maxing and relaxing and chatting with who knows who, and he just posted a price publicly, and he wound up having to pay for it. Didn't work out. So every now and then, right, that happens. But he is just saying, and the elephant in the room, the freaking mammoth in the room that none of the reporting is talking about is this is an employee of the U.S. government. This is a presidential appointee in the Office of Digital Services in the federal government, who is, you kind of alluded to that, Mike, in talking about, oligarchs and stuff, right? His statements are a representative statement of the U.S. government as well, because he is an officer, a compensated officer of the U.S. government, not confirmed, all right? So he's just saying whatever, and everybody's like, they're writing articles and they're examining. We're all doing this. We're examining it. We're looking at the strategy, the chessboard, and all that other sort of stuff. I'm just saying he just said something, and that's it.
It's great marketing for himself, but also OpenAI.
Yeah, there's a little something. I like this deconstruction of the strategy that puts the OpenAI board in a funny place and all that other sort of stuff. So I'm not saying there's no motivation, there's no effect of him saying it, but really, honestly, that's all he's doing. Once again, there's nothing here.
Right. In a sense, what he did was like the other guy, who we've alluded to. It's a diversionary thing. For a day or two, we're going to talk about this, then we'll forget about it, and we conveniently will overlook what's going on with Doge, which actually is the real story involving Musk. This is something he does, but he also wants to inflict some sort of damage and screw around. I was going to use another word with OpenAI. It's something he does. Larry Ellison would do the same thing. Remember, Larry Ellison had a history of saying, I think I'm going to buy this company, or I think I'm going to do this. Instead everybody
too, but they didn't do it just thoughtfully, just spitting out crapola, It's crapola. There's no intent behind. There's no offer. There's no offer here. There's just a statement.
Yeah, and we live in a time when people can say just random stuff and have it move markets.
So, do you think he would have actually paid it if Sam Altman accepted the offer? Do you think he would have actually paid it and bought it? That's the question.
He's forced to, essentially, other than the conflict of interest of being a federal officer. He's forced to, just like with Twitter. Okay, so he would be forced to, just like he had to with Twitter.
But just like with Twitter, he doesn't actually have this liquid cash and then this consortium of people that are supposedly going to be buying it. But that being said, I think if the OpenAI, again, nonprofit, wanted to accept this offer, I think there would be no shortage of funds and capital at this point to fund it and make it happen, because that would effectively give for $97 billion control of a $200 or $400 billion company. And that's just a valuable commodity.
Lisa Martin, is this the future of conversations between CEOs where they text to each other and then they share it with the press, and you have, one CEO calling another CEO allegedly a swindler? I mean, how crazy can this get?
Well, with Elon, I think the level of crazy could definitely go up. I hope this is not the way that CEOs communicate. I think he's an outlier in that, an extreme. But I think executive communications would come in to most organizations and put guardrails around what the CEO is doing so that the organization doesn't get derailed itself, ultimately serving its customers and delivering the value that they expect. So I think the level of crazy, I think, we're probably scratching the surface with Elon. It's a bit comical. You mentioned the word swindler being used. I saw that this morning, and it's just, it's silliness, really what it is. And to Guy's point, there's no real offer. This is FUD. This is out there. Maybe he's trying to slow OpenAI's plans to go for profit down, or provide a forcing function for the nonprofit that owns it. But these communications shouldn't be happening at this level for a healthy organization, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. John, is there room for a white knight in this conversation? Because there's a lot of people who don't like any of the players involved. So is there room for a third party?
Well, Microsoft's invested, I've lost track. It's $14 billion into OpenAI. I don't know. I mean, it's so early. We went through the same conversation, right? Although we did buy Twitter. I mean, for a long time, we dismissed that idea. And there were white knights that emerged during that were tended to be big tech. My fear always has been, and I think the fear out here and everywhere, is that if OpenAI were to be sold, it's the feeling is that given the climate now in terms of deregulation, in terms of M&A activity, that somebody in big tech is going to end up owning it. So we're going to have AI in the hands of maybe 3 or 4 major monster tech companies. That's the long-term anxiety.
All right. Well, here's my bet on it, is that we'll watch this drama play out for a few months, and then hopefully cooler heads will eventually prevail and will say, we need some serious adult supervision, because clearly these folks shouldn't be allowed to play with things that might go boom. So I'm just thinking that a lot of folks are going to go, you know what? These guys are not the guys to trust in this situation. But we'll see how it all plays out. We'll be back in a minute. All right, everybody, we're back, and we're going to talk about money again, but this time in the concept is called FinOps, which is the notion that somehow or other we're going to programmatically put some controls in place to limit our cloud spending and other IT spending and keep that in track with our policies.
Training
Now,
is what I have in
back
house.
in the day, I seem to remember when, this was called how we run IT. But Guy, what's your sense of, is FinOps for real here? Because we're already seeing, for example, FinOps companies buying IT service management companies, and we're also seeing ITSM people just start putting in FinOps capabilities alongside what they already have. So do I need a FinOps platform?
Oh, I think you do. But is it an exclusively FinOps platform? I think that it was a really necessary area of cloud development because of shadow IT and cloud bloat and all that sort of thing. And I think you have pointed out really well in a lot of venues, Mike, that Kubernetes also is this sort of enabling of, let's call it bloat, waste, overcapacity, that sort of thing. All of these are cost. And the very nature of the cloud and frankly of DevOps and Kubernetes is to be able to be extremely elastic and responsive, and to not sidestep exactly, but to be able to operate without a bunch of bean counters or frankly IT infrastructure people or whatever kind of getting in your way, so you can move fast, break things, blah blah blah. Okay, so what arose out of that was because if we all remember, the good grand old days was how cloud was going to save you money. And then everybody started to realize that actually cloud cost more money. I'm talking mostly about public cloud. And so as a separate thing, FinOps, a platform, a practice. FinOps is more a practice than platforms, really. There's a whole very successful consultancy industry around controlling cloud costs in particular, and that stretches out into containers and on-prem and all that other sort of thing. So all that is for the good. That sort of shines a light on the whole issue. But in the end, and what these recent acquisitions, like Do-It acquiring Perfect Scale, I think you just wrote about that yesterday or the other day. These kinds of moves to bring all of these operations under one umbrella, and in particular to stop saying it's just public cloud, but it's all of our infrastructure, all of our cloudified, on-demand, scalable infrastructure that we need to provide the freedom to the developers and application managers to do what they need to do, but also enforce policies in a way so that they can do it quickly, but also not overdo. Or, that all of this needs to be integrated together. And so if one day we're not talking about FinOps anymore and it's just part of cloud ops, great. If we'll still need FinOps experts, FinOps practitioners, some of them should be in the financial departments as well. So no, I think this is not only a good and welcome development, but unusually for me, I don't see any problem with having this sort of marketing term of FinOps out there that shines a light on a really important issue that actually is what helps cloudification, containerization, all of AIization, all those things, develop rapidly.
What I found was interesting about that article when I read it was when it said FinOps has been known to focus more on reducing costs, whereas they really should focus on increasing value. And there's a little bit of difference what focus you come from. And that's why teaming up with a cloud ops team who's utilizing that area is helpful. Coming together with two different teams, one focused on bringing the value.
I think that's right. I would just dispute. I think that cost control and sprawl and all those sort of things are much more the issue than value delivery. I think shining a light on value delivery and getting the most out of what you got is correct because one overshadows the other. But I think the predominant focus really does need to be on cost and sprawl control.
I think cost and sprawl control is sort of the useful outcome from FinOps that allows this to take hold and allows companies to embrace it, because it's a great sales message that says we're going to save you money. We're going to address the money that you're wasting. But truly, I have to say, I really found this article incredible, inspiring. I love the author's perspective on this. I'm going to echo what Amanda said. Another thing, a couple of sentences down, he said it's about fostering a cost-aware culture and creating accountability, which again is something that those of us in IT, we've not really had that. And I think that actually is a really great outcome as well. I don't know as much about this topic, but I will say that this article was really well written and really opened my eyes as to the possibility of what FinOps is. Because again, I came at it, like you said, kind of thinking about it. Oh yeah, that's about, keeping your AWS bill down. That's not what it is at all.
I'm going to say bull dinky. Here's the thing, and this is the truth of the matter. IT people, we had capacity planning back in the day. We had cost controls back in the day for everything on premise. And then the cloud came and we just basically abdicated responsibility for it. We threw it open to a bunch of developers who then showed up at a bar like a bunch of drunken sailors and started consuming stuff and over provisioning stuff. And everybody said, oh, well, we can't get in that conversation because God forbid we slow them down with any troubling information like cost. So I think FinOps is a lovely little term that we've come up with to kind of circle back and maybe apply some supervision to this stuff because we are freaking out about the cloud bills. But to sit here and say that FinOps is going to be a practice, I don't know. I'm not buying it. I think it's part of your job. It's your responsibility, and it's going to be a core feature into your ITSM platform, into your DevOps platform, and the days when we just let people consume things without any concern about cost are over. That's my 2 cents.
So you're saying, Lisa, help me attack Mike here. FinOps as a practice. Seriously, it's been helpful. It's been helpful.
It has been helpful. I was just writing about this for Tech Target the other week. What I like about it as a practice is the cultural transformation that we're seeing going on within organizations who, with shadow IT, are just spending money and suddenly it's out of control. Getting the heads of departments together, marketing, operations, sales, services, you name it, and having them understand how they're using it. There's value in that. The outcomes Stephen talked about, the outcomes Amanda talked about, that's value. So maybe it's just a messaging kind of mixed up their costs optimization versus value. Well, that is a value to an organization. I see that definitely, but I really see organizations embracing the cultural transformation, which is hard to do in order to deliver value to the end customer. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah, you want to talk about the realities, Mike? The realities today are the same as the realities of 20, 30 years ago, which is that the dev people hate working with the infrastructure people, and the infrastructure people wish the dev people would leave them alone so that they could just run a great infrastructure. And what something like a FinOps does as a practice is it allows the infrastructure people to say to the dev people, just go do what you want. You don't ever have to talk to us because we are putting the policies in place that we are all mutually. That was another great thing in that article, by the way, was talking about setting a common framework for understanding how resources should be used. So we have a common policy. Everybody's bought in. You don't have to talk to us anymore. You can just go and do your stuff and have fun. And the FinOps magic of the tooling and all that other stuff will ensure the policies are put in place and you can do what you need to do.
I'm not blaming the developers. They just walked into the situation and took advantage of it as they found it. So it's not really their fault. I am saying it's the absence of leadership on the part of senior IT executives that says, oh, now we need a little FinOps flag that we can wave so we can regain control of this thing. And that's kind of silly. Stephen, argue once more either way.
Well, I'll just say this. It sounds like what we're saying is that we need to foster a cost-aware culture and create accountability, which is literally what our author, Tatum Tunnan, said in this article.
I think
accountability, that's a key point.
I just think we should take a little responsibility for the situation and not blame it on some magical thing that we weren't aware of and then wrap a buzzword around it. I think what I'm saying to folks is look, we're having this conversation and we need to have this conversation largely because you allowed this to happen. That's all there is to it. All right. I'm going to end it there. I guess I'm going to get the last word on that one. You sure, guys?
Yeah, we can't have my optimism finish the segment. That just doesn't work. Let's stick with your dark view of the world.
I am optimistic that this issue will get fixed. I'm just saying, guys, I don't think we're going to be using this term for much longer. All right, guys, everybody, thanks for sharing your insights today. As always, spirited conversation. We always like to have those here in the Techstrong Gang. We invite you all to stay tuned for all the rest of the content that's on Techstrong TV. It's an awesome lineup. Once again, thank you all for participating, and we'll see you next time.
I'm Bonnie Schneider, sustainability contributor to the Techstrong Group. I'm excited to introduce you to a groundbreaking new initiative from Techstrong Research, the Sustainability Pulse Meter. The Pulse Meter offers valuable insights into how environmental responsibility factors into tech purchasing decisions for key players in the industry. Position your company as a leader in the industry and differentiate from your competitors with the Sustainability Pulse Meter, offered exclusively from Techstrong Research.